Hello, and welcome to the New Gen webinar, New Customer and Onboarding Must Go Beyond Thank You. I'm Nicholas Buddymeyer, and I shall be your host and moderator for this webinar. Thank you all for making time to join us today. The response has been overwhelming, and we're very excited to talk about the nuances of customer onboarding in 2021. Today we have us with Jim Marous, the widely recognized financial industry strategist. He is a top 5 fintech influencer, is the co-publisher of the Financial Brand, the owner and the publisher of the Digital Banking Report, and the contributor to Forbes and numerous other leading industry publications. We also have our co-presenter, Ankur, Rawat, who is the Director of Product and Solutions with NewGen. Jim Marous will talk about how to maximize new account generation and the value of new relationships. And then Ankur will take us deep into how NewGen can help financial institutions streamline customer onboarding with its digital account opening solution. At the end of the presentation, we will conduct a Q&A session. We request you to type your questions in the question window of the GoToMeeting anytime during the webinar, and our experts will address at the end of the session. Now let me hand over to Jim Marous to take us ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Nick. Today we're going to be talking about new customer onboarding. That is a subject matter we all are talking about on a regular basis. The challenge is, as we've seen in our research that we're going to discuss today, is that a lot of it has been just that. It's been talk more than action. The report we're going to be discussing, the results we're going to be discussing, is going to come from a report that we published that was sponsored by NewGen. And it's an in-depth review of the onboarding process. It provides insights into the business case and into how to build a customer-driven onboarding solution. What is unique about this report is the first one that we did post-pandemic or post-pandemic tier of time, where we're really going to talk about how this whole world has changed. And actually, when you think about geez, all the things that have changed, it's hard to think, well, how does onboarding change? You know, we're still trying to onboard new customers. The dynamics have actually changed significantly. As you can see on the next slide, you'll see that when we talk about the reasons for improving or beginning an onboarding program, these are not surprises. The primary objective that organizations mentioned was, number one, to build engagement, which is really key because if you build engagement, you're really improving the customer experience. Customers want engagement. They want to be engaged. They want to have dialogue, especially with a brand new relationship. Think about it in your situation. When you build a new relationship with a retailer or a restaurant or any place else, you want to be known, but that knowing you, it takes some time. We also find that organizations want to cross-sell and upsell services. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, one thing that has happened since the pandemic, the desire to cross-sell is not nearly as much as the desire to upsell. Now, what's the difference? The difference is in a cross-sell scenario, usually bankers think of the fact that I'm going to be selling services to you. In the new wave, in the post-pandemic world, we're really trying to find ways we can engage with consumers on their ground in the way they want to look at opportunities to improve their financial standing, not driven by time or sequence of events, but driven by the customer themselves. So we've got to think about how can we look at a way to improve the relationship through greater engagement. This will drive a better loyalty. So as we look at the next slide, you'll see that there's challenges though. The challenge we're talking about, number one, is complexity. This is the number one challenge. It's also the reason why when we asked organizations, where are you in the onboarding process? Surprisingly, we've had the exact same results within 2 or 3 basis points for the last 7 years. And what that has done is it's really shown us that organizations, there's about 50% of organizations that already have an onboarding program in place. About 23 to 26% say they're going to have one within the next year. And the rest say, you know, it's not in their plans right now. What is interesting about that is those numbers have stayed almost exactly the same for 7 years. So it means the same 50% still have onboarding program, The same 23% still say they're going to do one in the next year, and the rest continue to say they're not going to do one. Now, there's a problem with that because that means that it never hits a priority level where it actually gets implemented. You would normally expect the numbers to go up on the number of organizations that have onboarding. And the complexity is the number one reason. This is why we recommend right out of the starting gate. This is one of the great examples of where a partnership with an organization that already builds onboarding programs is so important. This is in much the same way that we look at data and analytics, when we look at digital engagement. We look at the fact that partnering is the way to get there quicker, faster, and easier, and actually, and I'll discuss this a little bit, at a lower cost with a higher revenue potential. So while complexity is true, it's better time than ever to partner with an organization that truly has done onboarding programs, can help you avoid the pitfalls, the detours that may be along the way, and make it for a better trip. On the next thing you'll see that the pandemic impact overall was significant. When we move people to digital account opening as opposed to in-person account opening, it was found by research and by Navantis that the relationship value, both in the beginning and later in the engagement, went down. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean we have to drive more people to the branches. That's not the answer. The consumer doesn't want that. What it means is we've got to take even more effort to try to get that digital consumer to be engaged, to be a regular customer, and to build their balances in the relationship over time. This is why the pandemic has really increased the need for a strong digital onboarding program. We need to make these customers replicate, at least as a starting point, what they were like when they came into the branch, but even more so over time, to build that relationship where the consumer says, you know what, I want to do more business with you. These are important criteria, but it's important. I'm sure all of you have noticed that the balances aren't the same as they were pre-pandemic. It's not because of the pandemic. It's because when consumers engage initially digitally, they're less apt to deepen that engagement unless helped along the way. On the next slide, you're going to see one of the ways you can take care of this. We asked organizations that already had successful onboarding programs, how do you resolve for the fact that organizations have a lower balance and a lower level of engagement? The first and foremost reason or way to do it was to input and have human engagement in the digital process. Now, let me talk about this for a little bit, because this is about all that has to do with digital transformation. Many organizations really don't put a high enough priority on the need for the staff, the team, the people in the branches, the people in the call center, the people in charge of product, to really get involved in these digital processes. But think of it from their perspective. Every time we mention the word digital or digital banking or digital engagement, what they are hearing is a potential loss of my job. That is the furthest thing from the truth at most organizations. The desire to go to a digital engagement, digital new account opening, digital loan application, the importance of looking at an overall digital process does not eliminate the need for humanization. It actually increases the need for more personalized engagement. So what we're looking at is that overall, when we're talking about a digital onboarding process, so how do you get those humans involved? Well, first of all, you take your data and analytics that come out of your new account opening process, the information you collect, and you build a profile of that consumer and determine what is the next product that makes the most sense for them, not for us. We don't jump immediately from a new account opening checking account to a loan product. We don't go jump immediately to something that is not a logical sequence to build a relationship. The first thing that we should be selling would be engagement from the standpoint of online and mobile banking. How about remote deposit capture, taking pictures of checks? How about building a payment process, a P2P payment process, or transfer of funds that happen regularly because of utility bills, and obviously direct deposit? This is where the humans really come into play. These are the things they used to do in the branch every time they open an account. They still need to be engaged in this. We need to give them the tools, the information, the insight, the data for them to reach out to these brand new consumers as well as ongoing consumers and help along the customer journey. By doing this, by building this engagement level, you have made this digital process human, which is different than many of your competitors. We can't take this out of the equation because it also makes your employees realize they're a part of the whole digitalization process and they won't undermine your engagement. On the next slide, we asked, how about the keys to onboarding success? We asked organizations, again, who have already had successful programs, what are the keys to your success? Number one, contextual and intuitive product recommendations. That means we don't put people into a set sequence of, if you've done this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. We have to look at this differently. We have to say, based on the way the customer opened the account and what they've already opened, based on their balance level, based on their engagement, this may be the first product we have to offer them or service. But then we maybe have to go a different path for customer A versus customer B. We have to think intuitively. I keep on saying that we do not want to have financial service that we look in the back rearview mirror and determine what they've already done. We really want the GPS of financial service to talk about what's the next thing they should do. And believe me, when we talked to the organization of the best programs, they said the better they were at finding out what the next best product was on a personalized basis, the deeper the level of engagement, the broader the relationship, and the more revenue was generated from that relationship, even if it wasn't initially revenue generating products and services. Secondly, the speed of initial contact. We have some organizations that we work with that reach out through SMS text and contact the person immediately upon opening the account. It used to be immediately upon leaving the branch, they'd get a text that said, "Thank you for coming in and talking to us." It was immediately generated. It was part of the process. That speed of initial contact is what you bring in the digital engagement. If you sign up for Netflix, they don't stop talking to you for the next 4 weeks. They talk to you immediately, and they don't just say thank you. This is the whole idea of what the presentation today was. We've got to go beyond just a simple thank you to say, how do we engage the consumer and let them know how we're going to engage, why we're going to engage, and even maybe the channels. I'm a big believer that the use of SMS text is extraordinarily valuable. Think about your own situation. When you wake up in the morning, you usually don't look at your emails first, you look at your text messages. If your financial institution reached out to you and said, this is something that we think you should do next, here's a link, here's some information about the product, maybe it's a video about how to take a picture of your check and deposit it, maybe it's a video around how do you set up a P2P transfer, or maybe a utility bill payment. But the reality is the speed of that initial contact and the intuitive recommendation is key. The offer is actually the third most important thing. It's not nearly as high as what you think. And the offer doesn't have to be much more than, we're listening to you, we're looking out for you. The consumer says, know me, look out for me, and reward me. And the reward does not have to be monetary or product-based or a discount or a lift in rates. The reward may simply be knowing them well enough to know what's next service they should open. So this is very important. When you look at the keys to onboarding success, we're now going to move to the need to personalize the experience. You know, Ron Shevlin writes for Forbes, and he did a really good article on this next slide yesterday. He talked about the need to personalize the onboarding process. The need to personalize the onboarding process goes far beyond simply using their name or saying, by the way, thank you very much for opening your new checking account or whatever it may be. What you have to do is over time, you have to build a profile, what the consumer looks like on an individualized basis. You know, 75% 74% of organizations said they either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed that you must personalize the onboarding process. And I'll keep on referencing the fact that that does not mean just using their name. My personal financial institution that I use reached out to me and said, what balance level do you want to set as your balance that you want to be a minimum that will inform you that your account may be in danger and you need to deposit funds? Now, the problem is that's not a bad question to ask if it's early in the relationship, but I've had the relationship with that firm for 15 years. As a result, I expect them to know me better than I know me, and they should know what balance level is important on different days of the month based on mortgage payment or tuition payment, based on my paychecks and money I send out to contractors. The consumer who is now used to things like Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Instacart, and all these other platforms that continue to take information in and make the relationship better, especially in the onboarding process, expect you to use data to improve the engagement level. So let's look at the next slide, because another part of the whole onboarding process, and we're going to talk about this a little later, is to make sure you use a lot of different channels. Why do you need to use different channels? Because not every consumer communicates in exactly the same way. So you'll see that the number one channel that, from a standpoint of effectiveness, was the phone. This is a post-pandemic survey. So think about this. It gets back to my humanization of the onboarding experience that I related to earlier, that the phone allows you as a human to connect with the consumers, just open an account and connect with them on a personal basis. This takes the digital engagement process to a human level. The second most used one was email. And what's interesting about that, that's more of a legacy situation, as is digital marketing. These are things that organizations are always doing and have been doing. But again, I'm going to get back to SMS text, because a combination of SMS text with content management, the ability to send them to a specific part of the site to learn about the service you're trying to sell them or to have them sign up, is so powerful. A lot of organizations are using text messages combined with videos and other ways to engage the consumer. Sometimes it's simply a survey about their financial goals. It keeps them involved, and it is open so much more than any other channel. It is up to 10 times more effective than email and up to 15 times more effective than digital marketing. So if you aren't already using SMS text, I can't emphasize enough the importance of that channel. If we go down the line, you'll see the way that, excuse me, before I joined the financial brand and got into this business, I was a direct marketer. And it was interesting, if we had asked this survey 10 years ago, direct marketing would be the number one way that organizations you did onboarding. Now it's second to last, it's 19%. It is part of the mix, but it's not the primary driver. So before I turn it over, I want to emphasize a couple things. Number one, not having an onboarding program right now is not an option. It is more important than ever to have an onboarding program, because the value of the relationship will not be maximized or optimized unless you have a digital onboarding program. Number two, just because it's digital does not mean turn it on and forget it. What it means is you have to continually have the things move to personalize the experience and to humanize the engagement. The level of human involvement cannot be ignored, and it's even more important now that we have almost all digital interactions, because it stands out. Think about it. When you have an organization call you after you've built a digital relationship, it is special. It stands out. That's going to make your program more effective. Number three, partner. And the reason I emphasize that so much is not because I'm all, not because NewGen sponsored this webinar, but because it's so doggone important to realize it's very hard to build an effective onboarding program yourself. More than ever, it is need to build partnerships so that you can get there faster, easier, and avoiding the challenges that other organizations have faced. Organizations such as NewGen and others can use data in any form. You don't have to wait until your data is in a perfect silo situation. They know how to use the data to perform in a way that's going to bring you revenue. Finally, more than ever, and this is something not to be forgotten, is the fact that the onboarding process is continually evolving. It's building over time. One thing that's really kind of exciting is when you have a partner, is they're going to bring you the success stories that others have had in this new environment we're in. So I'm now going to turn it over to NewGen to do some presentation. I'll be interacting during the process, but thank you very much for your time. Ankur?
Thank you, Jim. Always a pleasure to listen to a lot of insights that you provide, especially within the banking framework. And yes, we are deriving a lot of insights from you into our tool. And my session today is focused on the same topic: customer onboarding must go beyond thank you. But the idea is that you have strongly laid out the point of why it has to go beyond just thank you, to how NewGen can help its customers, banks and credit unions and others in order to achieve that journey in an effective manner. Okay, so I'll be talking about that in my session today. Now, in a lot of my discussions with the digital marketing officers, retail banking heads, CIOs, CEOs, they are always juggling in terms of the consistent dilemma between the focus that they have to lay on either account opening as a quick win, customer expansion, or a comprehensive customer onboarding. Now, the idea here is that should they look at the quantity of deposits, how many customers they have acquired in a year, or should they focus also on the deposit quality, which means that how much is the stickiness with the customers, what kind of additional relationships that they can have, which you already mentioned. So there is really the battle between the instant gratification of having quickly opened the account, the speed with which we are always in the market. There's a talk about 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes account opening. So the instant gratification of having that speed of the account opening versus also focusing and extending that experience to a higher customer lifetime value and the strength of the relationships that we have with the customers. Okay, so this is the consistent discussions that we have, and typically it's a discussion between the marketing, the compliance teams on how to balance and do this balancing act for the clients. So taking a cue from the digital banking report, again, the white paper, which can be downloaded from NewGen website as well, taking a cue in terms of the perfect or the optimum number of touch points for the highest customer satisfaction, okay, is 5 to 6 times. And now the point to note here is this is not the actual number of contacts. These are the perceived contacts, which means that out of 10 or 15 contacts or communications that you're sending to the end customers, the members, the customers through email or multiple channels, out of that, how many of those are actually acknowledged, read, and understood by the end customers? Okay, so based on the survey conducted, as part of the report, 5 to 6 is the ideal touch point for the perceived touch point, which means that the actual number of communications that a bank or credit union should be sending out should be a bit higher, maybe 7 to 9 from the banks and credit unions perspective. Okay, now what's the solution for this, and how NewGen can enable effective and consistent touch points for the end customers communication? Now, we planned to solve this with NewGen's customer onboarding best practices. So there could be different set of communications, touch points, contacts that you would have with your clients. Okay. Now, these could be with the account opening process itself, while they're opening the account on that particular screen, if you are able to enable them with the consistent messaging and the appropriate information, that's the first step for the success. But you don't have to stop there. As Jim rightly mentioned, it has to go beyond thank you. So there has to be communication which has to be sent immediately after the account opening, and then it has to be followed through within weeks of account opening. Perfect examples are ensuring that they understand the right next steps, whether they have to enroll into the online banking, mobile banking, who is the relationship manager assigned to them in their vicinity branch. Okay, with all such communications, they are better equipped, and they trust the bank and credit unions in terms of taking care of this business. Also, a consistent experience evolution for the bank and credit union would be to have a quick survey. And this is typically, some of the times you may get the answers, you may not get the answers, but the idea is to at least make an attempt to understand what is going well with you, with your communications or the experience, and what can be improved going forward. And then within weeks of account opening, the communication should be sent to ensure that, first of all, they have that contact, a courtesy call through the customer care, or you sending them messages, but also ensuring that whatever is the best action for them, whether they have to enroll onto online banking, they have done that. If not, it's a reminder, a gentle reminder for the suggested actions. And if there have been certain services that they have opted for, ensuring that they have received it, it just shows the amount of care the institutions are providing to ensure that the end customers are getting the most out of the services that you offer.
One thing, Ankur, about this chart too is these are the number of contacts within the first 6 weeks. This is not during the first year. And a lot of organizations I used to work with used to have a regulation as far as how many times you could reach out to the consumer. Anybody who's on the phone now that either has an onboarding program, wants to build one, you've got to break through the barrier in your marketing department or whatever department says the rules are you can't contact a person over one time a month, to say that is not a good rule for an onboarding process. We found that, as you can see, satisfaction actually increases based on the number of times you reach out. And if you look at this survey and you say, well, gee, 60%, something like that, don't ever reach out, that means they don't have an onboarding program. So let's say it was even 50%. What you have to look at is, as you look at the other number of contacts, half of those that have onboarding programs only reach out 1 or 2 times, which is why we came up with the term, it's got to go beyond thank you. And we found the same research, that we found out that the majority of organizations only touch consumers' email box or anyplace else 1 to 2 times. And I'll guarantee you that's usually one may be a thank you, another one may be a sales pitch listing 8 or 9 different things the consumer is going to do. That is not engagement. I mean, I just signed up for a digital tool that takes my breath and determines the metabolism. They've reached out to me 6 times, and I just got it yesterday. And that's not irritating, because I want to learn how to use it better. A consumer's decision on their financial services relationship is even a more important decision. They want to hear from you. They want to know how to engage with your bank the best. And one thing we have to remember, and Ankur brought this up on the first slide, is these customers are now opening their accounts digitally. They can close and change them just as fast. The majority of consumers are opening digitally, are opening with a very small balance. They'll say, I'll find out the way to get my money back. I'm going to go someplace else if they don't feel the relationship is strong to begin with. So remember, we're teaching consumers how to engage digitally and to move their money quickly. We have to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Now, another great insights from the white paper and the research paper is in terms of the ability to add additional products within 6 months for different institutions. Based on the survey, the results are also discouraging and disappointing. The market is huge, and all the customers and the members are looking for that sticky relationships. They are having at least 2.5 accounts in their banking relationships. So the idea was to see if the institutions are harping on the customer onboarding, going beyond thank you and adding additional products within 6 months. Okay, so as you can see, only 15% of the institutions were able to achieve results more than 50% of their customers adding one additional account. Okay, now as Jim rightly pointed it out, it cannot be just immediate sales as soon as they open the account. It has to be in a structured manner. It has to go along with the data that you have, the rules that you have, and also the events that may occur in the customer's lifecycle journey. So how do we solve, how to enable the intelligent cross-selling with NewGen's rules-driven cross-selling engine? Okay, so based on the rules engine that we have, we're able to guide the customers with the best practices throughout the journey for the cross-selling. Now, there could be a lot of different products which can be easily sold along with the journey itself. We have seen great examples. If somebody is opening a checking account, hey, this is an additional saving account, no balance required, and these are the benefits. We have seen that the probability of getting those accounts sold or adopted by the customers are higher than any complicated product, which could be lending or other products going forward. Okay, so there are some of the cross-selling options which should be presented immediately along with the initial journey, bundled offering within the single session savings account, credit cards, which quickly require a shot to connect with the credit bureaus and provides instant approval for those credit cards. Okay. Now, once the account has been opened, there are still options for the institutions to understand the behavior of the customers as well as the data profile and do a delayed cross-selling of loans, or if there are certain investment accounts based on the data that you have, you're able to present that based on the immediately after the account opening is done. And then there are event-driven cross-selling options. Now, this would not just be the next 6 months, but it's a continuous exercise, as Jim rightly pointed it out. You cannot just implement and forget. You have to keep updating this and present the right options for the customers for the products that they may need. So if there is an update on the credit profile, are they now eligible for some other products that they were not eligible before? The average age of a US citizen, to buy a home is 34 years of age, right? So are we tapping that market, or are we sending the mortgage product communication to the right people at the right time, or have we missed that train? Okay, so those are some of the best practices that we bring to the table with NewGen's rules-driven cross-selling.
Yeah, and again, the need to partner and get an organization that can build an intelligent cross-selling process could not be overemphasized, because the consumers become very smart at what organizations can do. They know you have information on them. They gave it to you when they opened the account. They know that you should do better than just send out a blanket statement to everybody who just opened an account saying, oh, by the way, you should do this, this, and this. I had my banking, my small business bank, which is different than my personal bank, sent me out something right before PPP loans and said, hey, we think you should look into the possibility of PPP loans. So that sounded really good in the beginning. And then they said, if you want one, you should sign up for online or mobile banking. I had both. And then they said, if you don't need a PPP loan, but you need cash, remember our locations of ATMs, and you can also do a mobile deposit capture, both of which I do regularly. So immediately the communication was so impersonal and made me feel like what they did is just send a blanket email to every business customer they had. The consumer's not at all happy about that. In fact, they are more and more willing to break their loyalty and trust that you're going to actually serve them. Now, how bad is it when an organization says, we're looking out for you. We're going to be your financial partner. And then they talk to you in general terms. They put you into a queue that says, when this, then this, then this. And they put you into the onboarding process that is just set up automatically to go, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and do this, and it's not going to be personalized. So again, the importance of intelligent cross-selling cannot be overemphasized.
Thank you, Jim. Now, again, as we have seen within various reports, Jim has pointed out there was a report from Ron Shevlin, and these reports keep coming up. So while the customer onboarding is the top priority, it is first of all not adopted with enough pace. And even if it is adopted, there are challenges, and the effectiveness of the customer onboarding has never been to the fullest in the market. Okay. Now, there are certain challenges with respect to the change management itself, which may be pointing to the reason for the failure, or not achieving the maximum out of the customer onboarding solutions. Okay. So this is the ease of modification to the onboarding due to the changing regulations and change of business needs. How easy it is for the institutions, and as per the survey, 52%, 70% of the 72% of the institutions find it either relatively difficult or extremely difficult to make changes. Okay, and while we all can understand the scenario right now, what are the best practices, what are the regulations, none of us are aware of what the situation would be 5 years down the line, or 10 years, even a couple of years down the line. So the idea here is that there is no ideal solution here. There has to be an ideal and adaptable platform which is able to easily modify the need of the business changes as per the needs of the business changes and the changing regulations. So how to enable future-proof customer onboarding is something that NewGen provides to its customers, and solve this with NewGen's low-code digital account opening platform. Okay, and when I say low-code, it really means that the power to make changes on the digital platforms is with our clients, and they're able to make the changes, whether these are changes with respect to the products, adding the products on the fly, changing the product parameters, running the campaigns, using the NewGen's account opening solution, which actually is going beyond the customer onboarding, right? Making changes in the process based on the changing regulations, or if there are internal improvement avenues identified by the institutions. So how quickly can those changes be done within the system? Okay. And then within the cross-selling, as we recently talked about, there has to be continuous improvement in that as well. So it's always good to have the understanding of the results of the cross-selling and what campaigns are working better than others. So the need for having an A/B testing, which is a challenger and the follower kind of the testing, is important. So we are able to provide such functionalities to our clients to ensure that they are future-proof and obsolescence is not an option for our customers.
One more thing is it's not just cross-selling, it's sometimes cross-communicating is what I call it, because let's say, for instance, a consumer signs up for loan payment deferment. You may initially think, oh, this person is going to be in some financial trouble, that they maybe have lost their job, their family's in stress right now, they can't make their mortgage, whatever it may be. The reality is about half of the consumers that signed up for loan payment deferment did so they could build their savings account for that rainy day fund that looked more and more like a rainy day as the pandemic started. So we have to avoid pre-assuming where the customer is going to go, and maybe use, maybe it's a survey that we send out as part of the onboarding process to say, tell us more about what your needs are. And then we capture that and use that as part of the intelligent onboarding process and to shift the rules of the engagement. In addition, I mentioned this earlier, one of the benefits of using an outside solution provider to build your onboarding program is that you're going to benefit from the successes that other organizations have had. As they build some logic around what they can do, it's not that we're sharing secrets. The reality is the logic is what we're trying to share, the logic of how to make your program more successful. And honestly, if you have 3, 4, 5, 30 different account relationships with different financial institutions, you can bring these together and say, by the way, this is what we've seen work. That's going to be much better than doing all that learning on your own.
Thank you, Jim. And just adding to that, not only the ease of modification ensures that you have a proper change management, it also ensures that if the institutions have a secret sauce, any specific unique option they want to provide to their customers, they're able to embed that within the solution, within NewGen solution, instead of just depending on what the vendors have to offer as part of their out-of-the-box and packaged solution. So I'll just glance over this graph here, and Jim has already talked about the challenges to the multi-channel onboarding, okay, complexity, cost, and staffing. Now, what we are seeing based on our discussion with the institutions, and this is the realistic scenario. If the customers or the members are communicating with the institution, either for opening the account or for updating their account, they're actually interacting with different systems in the backend. Okay, so for online account opening, a lot of institutions do not have it, and even if some institutions have it, they have it as a siloed application which has been deployed online for accepting the applications. Somebody calling up the customer care center, again, the employees or the customer care executives are connecting with a different system altogether, asking different questions and giving a separate experience or a unique experience to the customers. And somebody coming to the branch, we have seen, and these are realistic scenarios, that the branch account opening solution is completely different, not aligned with the online account opening solution, giving an inconsistent experience to the end customers, because whatever employees are experiencing is something that finally the customers will experience. Account maintenance, again, a lot of times it is done directly within the core banking. And then if you are doing the campaign management or the cross-selling, again, this is a lot of times driven by the CRM or the other engines. Now, I'm not saying that the institutions do not have these capabilities to go beyond thank you today to provide communication, cross-sell, and maintain the accounts using the tools. But as of now, it is in siloed environments. So what we are really saying here is all the institutions should aim for connected banking. Okay, and the way it is possible is with a single unified platform like NewGen's digital account opening solution, which will allow you to handle all such touch points with the customers and members in a seamless fashion. Okay. So what we have as part of NewGen solution is NewGen solution for digital account opening and customer onboarding. We take care of the entire life cycle of customer onboarding. So we have omni-channel approach for accepting the applications. So we have these customers can actually come through the web portals, they can access the solutions on the mobile or tablet devices and initiate an application within the portal. We are able to ensure that it's a frictionless journey for them. Okay, so whether they are an existing customer, all the data is captured and pre-populated automatically. If they are not, we are able to get the data from different sources, again, whether it is LinkedIn or uploading the data directly from their driver's license, and ensuring that as to the maximum extent we are able to approve and open the account online. So this includes instantaneous connections with third-party systems for ID verification, ID authentication, or OFAC check, blacklist check, IP address validation. So all of those are done in real time to ensure that it's not a fraudulent account or the identity is not invalid. Finally, with seamless connections into e-signing application, payment gateways, we are able to ensure that the accounts are opened within less than 5 minutes for our customers. Okay, and even after that, if there are certain exceptions, which we all have seen is a realistic situation, we have complete branch account opening as well as back office review mechanism to handle those exceptions, along with real-time reports available to the senior management and the product heads. Okay, going beyond the account opening, customer onboarding, account maintenance is again something which is part of NewGen solution and provides a holistic perspective on the account opening and customer onboarding. And this is completely in line with the thought of the session today, that the customer onboarding must go beyond thank you, and this is how it can go beyond thank you. So I just have a couple of slides, and the numbers speak. The customer's testimonial that we have we had this panel discussion a few months back, and we did have our clients, happy clients from CCF Bank, Georgia's Own Credit Union, Equity Bank, and so on. And one of these clients, Georgia's Own Credit Union, they have digitized and created an online channel with Newgen system for deposit accounts as well as loan accounts. Okay, so they are kind of moving from just one platform, deposit, to loans as well. And the benefits that they received was their online account opening process was reduced from 15 minutes to just 5 minutes. And these are realistic numbers. These are not just the capabilities to open the account, but actual numbers from the production environment. Also, the amount of back office time that was spent on reviewing the applications was also reduced by 35%, and a heavy uplift in terms of the increased cross-selling of the products that they had was one of the other factors that they achieved.
I think it's important to realize that this is not a one-step situation. It's not a one instance example. The reality is, in my many years of working with banks, I have never seen an onboarding program that was not successful. I've never seen somebody turn one off. And the reality is, I've seen a lot that have been under implemented, not optimized. The growth hasn't been what it should be. But the one thing to remember, if you build an onboarding program well, you will end up with a positive ROI almost from the first month. And I have a lot of connections in the industry that are still out there, and they're saying the same thing, that the onus has been on them to optimize it, but even not doing it well, they end up with a positive ROI. So from a standpoint of investment from return, it's an immediate positive investment, and one that the 23% that say they're going to do one next year, it's more important than ever. And again, it's about speed to market. It's about the ability to say, while we may take 4 to 5 months to build the overall onboarding process, can we do something now to impact the brand new customers we can bring on board? And you can. And that's the thing to remember, is that you can get an immediate impact, and then the broader impact over time is the interrelationship and the data is collected. But I think it's important to realize that the power of the connected consumer, the power of realizing that the onboarding process starts from the time the person shops for a new relationship to the time they leave the bank. And if you do things well, they will not leave the bank during your career.
Well said, Jim. Okay. So I wanted to leave everyone with the thought before we move on to Q&A section with the idea of connected banking. Okay. So this is where we are seeing that with the customer centricity being the ultimate, core objective of all the organizations, and it cannot be said, emphasized enough. The idea here is to have a connected banking which revolves around the customer, and the way we connect with the customer through omni-channel, contextual, anywhere, anytime, and personalized communications by collaborating and creating a symphony across all the functions, systems, processes, and people is something which will really drive the growth and the cost advantages for the institutions. And when we talk about connected banking, we are not isolating this extended banking ecosystem of fintechs, aggregators, merchants, suppliers, and channels. We are saying that they are also part of this connected banking enterprise, and also the employees, customers, partners who are having that experience. It has to be a great customer experience, great employee experience, and partner experience at the end. Okay, and we have seen that a lot of institutions nowadays are coming talking to us and highlighting that the business needs which are driven by the business folks are limited by the current technologies that they have, and they're really looking for modernization of those platforms. So I think the idea of modernization and the connected banking gels well together in the terms of any of the solutions, whether these are account opening and going beyond that to the lending, commercial lending, and so on. And that's where Newgen storyboard is. Okay. So I'll thanks a lot, and I wanted to leave these the thought of connected banking to you all. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, just one more thing, Ankur, on this slide. This one could take forever just to dig into, but I think the major takeaway I had was that you really need to engage your customers, your employees, and your partners to build an overall engagement and an overall experience that's going to be greater than it's ever been before. The power of data, analytics, strong leadership, and a culture that is going to say our outlook, our focus is going to be on making sure the consumer relationship, our customer and members relationship, is built on the foundation of making it as strong as possible on the customer's behalf. That is what onboarding is all about. That's what digital transformation is all about. That's what engagement and experience is all about. As I said before, the consumer wants you to know them, look out for them, and reward them in such a way that they're going to realize that you're out for their betterment. And it's those organizations that forget about the onboarding process, forget about using data for a better engagement process, forget about using their employees to build relationships that really suffer. So differentiate yourself. Differentiate yourself today by building an onboarding process, a new account opening process that will set the stage for growth and relationship over time.
Thank you, Jim. Over to you, Nick.
All right, thank you, Jim and Ankur. So we're going to get started with the Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the question window in the GoToWebinar, and hopefully if we have enough time, we'll get to them. So we do have a few questions here. So it looks like the first one is directed at you, Jim. The question is, so we have so many options in the market. How do we find the right product for digital account opening or onboarding?
Well, I think when you look at two different things. One is, where do you start? You know, what product you start with? I believe you should start with the checking account from the standpoint of the product area you should start with. And then when you talk about how do you select partners and options out there with partners, I think you have to have a partner that, number one, has done many of these things before, where you really have the ability to partner with them in such a way that you realize, I'm getting more out of this than I would have if I did it myself. And then where do you start? You start with the first touch, and then you start with the second touch. And the key is to get out there as fast as possible with experience on what do I do right out of the starting blocks when a person opens up a new relationship, and how do I keep that going over time? And remember that the onboarding process is simply a word we put out there for the new accounts. The reality is this is just the beginning of the overall customer journey, and we have to build the same type of relationship over time as the consumer's relationship gets stronger. And never forget that the consumer wants communication from their bank and credit union.
Thank you, Jim. Now we do have a question that kind of goes along with that. Is they said that they do want to adopt a digital account opening technology, but how do they sell this to the board?
Well, I think the easiest way, and Ankur, you can get into this as well, but I think the best way to sell to the board is the fact that you're not opening new accounts if you don't have a strong digital account opening process. If you don't have one at all, you're losing up to 80% of the consumers that initially engage wanting to open an account with you. If you have a digital account opening process, simply took what you were doing in the branch and put on a mobile app, which we have found takes between 15 to 20 minutes to complete, you're losing as much as or more than 60% of your potential base. Guys, do the math. You can sell to your board really quickly that if you do not look at the back office processes that can functionally make a digital account opening process easier, you're faking digital. Go open an Apple credit card. It's 5 screens, and most of them are simply validating what they already know about you, and you just saying, yeah, that looks good to me. That looks good to me. I'll put my last 4 digits of my social security number in place. If you don't make everything as simple as Apple, Chime, Current, Varo, I'll keep on going on, Rocket Mortgage. If you don't start looking things from the way the digital players do it, the simplicity, the engagement, you're losing more than half of the people that want to bank with you, but are abandoning their shopping cart because it's just too hard. Ankur, you see the same thing, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we do get such questions all the time. And obviously, apart from the points that Jim you mentioned, there's a clear value in terms of not just the number of accounts that they open, but also the resulting customer lifetime value of those accounts, right? So, those customers, if you do the customer account opening well and onboarding, as we discussed, there's a huge advantage to all the relationships, the sticky relationships, the additional accounts, and the revenue that will be generated. And then there is another example that I'm always afraid to give, but it's a matter of survival right now. It's not a luxury anymore. It's not something which is an option right now, right? So it has to be done, and we are already. And whenever we ask the the inquiries that we respond, we ask them, when do you get the account opening solution to be implemented? The answer, without any exception, is yesterday. Okay, so I cannot stress enough on this, that it's really important, and we help you all the clients make the business case. So we do the heavy lifting from that perspective right from the beginning of the engagement as well.
Thank you, Jim and Ankur, for that response. So Ankur, I have a question for you here. They said that they're just starting out their evaluation journey of this type of technology. How is NewGen helping banks like them? What is the blueprint for long-term success?
Okay, yeah, it's a, and again, there are a lot of institutions who may be diving into this market right now. They're trying to explore the new options. So the only answer that I have is that we do understand that you don't know what you don't know, right? So we understand that, and we are there to do the heavy lifting, as I discussed earlier, right from the beginning of understanding the key priorities that you have, adjusting and aligning the overall roadmap for the selection, for the best practices with you, creating the business case for the management, and then once it is finally implemented, once you finally select a vendor, if it's NewGen, we are able to implement the solution within 4 months, providing you a quick win and an immediate ROI going forward. Okay. Having said that, in terms of blueprint, we have seen that the organizations, and Jim rightly pointed it out, this is not just this is just the beginning, right? So you cannot really stop at deploying the customer onboarding or account opening. This is the first step in the digital transformation that you have, and we have seen organizations taking NewGen's platform from account opening to consumer lending, creating that digital channel for consumer lending and commercial lending going forward. And then again, the story right comes right to the connected banking, as we were discussing earlier. So we do understand this space, we do the heavy lifting, and we are there to help all of our clients.
Thank you, Ankur. So this next question has 2 prongs to it. The first part being for Jim, and the second part being for Ankur. It's for Jim. What are you seeing for the commercial account onboardings? And then for Ankur, does NewGen have capabilities for commercial accounts online?
The one major difference between the consumer and the commercial, I'm going to say commercial rather than small business, because small business it's more of a consumer one, is with the commercial business one, the importance of data and a relationship depth is of utmost importance. Secondly, the importance of the human is even more than it is on the consumer side, because you have calling officers on the commercial relationship. And while you can send out texts and direct mail and email and everything else, the reality is what you want to do is take the information that you build on the consumer or on the customer and send it to the action officer, the commercial loan officer, whatever it may be, so that they can act on it quickly. It's still a matter of quickness. So the problem is, when you got into digital banking, you got in a situation the commercial officers sometimes felt left out. These people are even more worried about the digital wave that's coming up. So I think the biggest difference between commercial and the consumer and even small business is that you really need to use data to give information to the calling officers so they can take action. Okay?
Yes, and I concur with you, Jim, on that. And just to also kind of align that question with how NewGen is helping. So I think by far within the market, instead of just having a quick packaged application for consumer deposits, we took this challenge of providing a comprehensive account opening and customer onboarding solution, not just for consumer but also for small business, commercial institutions, the businesses, and even for the loans, right? So it's a single platform that we have, which provides the entire life cycle and the onboarding for all these products. So we do have the complete package for this.
And I just want to do one more quick question since we are at the top of the hour. It says, if our current tech abilities aren't available yet to embed content management into SMS text, should we launch without that convenience in order to plant the seed?
I look at Ankur. I think we both concur that yes, you should. There's many ways to do it on a build-as-you-go method. The problem we get into as an industry is we keep on wanting it to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect today. It won't be perfect tomorrow. And the reality is, perfection continues to drive forward as we're sitting still. Ankur?
Absolutely, I cannot agree more to that. It's a moving target all the time, right? And by the time you have built something, some of the things will change, and that's where the criticality of having a low-code, agile, and malleable platform is surely helpful to all the institutions. So I cannot agree more to that.
Great.
Thank you for those responses there. So we are over our time here. So I just want to thank everybody for attending the webinar that we had here. There was a lot of questions about if the deck is going to be available. So I just did want to put that out there.
And the report, we're going to send, I think
right.
NewGen's going to be sending out the report to everybody who signed up as well.
So for everybody that was asking, the deck and the report will be available for viewing.
Thanks everyone for taking your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.